I didn't write this down, but Phyllis, we have to take a roll call, right?
Sam Collier.
Here.
Bill Cartbach.
Here.
Ken Miller.
Here. And the minutes of the previous Board of Works meeting were emailed. Any revisions to those?
I'll make a motion to accept the email.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion's passed. Okay, first on the agenda is, I think this is basically just a matter of records, or we need to approve it, I guess, and that's, we always take bids for tree stump removal, and it's usually Greg Logan and Phil Teamy who bid that, and this year's, okay, the bids from Logan was $1.25 per inch of stump.
Yes.
And Phil Teamy was $1.20 per inch. So, we need to approve one of these. I would suggest the lower of the two, as they both are very experienced.
Right, exactly. I'll make a motion to accept Teamy's quote or bid.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? We're going with Teamy. You'll let him know, or?
Yeah, I think Dwight already
Has let him know?
Yeah,
Okay.
the lowest bid.
Okay.
They were open prior to this. They were due back on December 21st, but this is our first meeting of the Board of Works.
That's really like the only major thing on the agenda. We have things to discuss, numerous things to discuss, but we need everyone to be up here, at least I'd prefer them to be up here, to talk about the First Street properties primarily. And possibly NDOT. And NDOT, yes, yes. So, being a new mayor, I had very little on the Board of Works meeting. We are going to keep the meeting short this evening, and I want all of council, I know Wiley and Craig and probably Tyler have never been upstairs here. I'm going to take a tour of upstairs. If you would like to join, you can. Yeah, whenever you guys are done, come on up.
Okay.
Anybody know what the latest is on Tyler? Is he here tonight?
He was here at the Plan Commission.
Okay,
Yeah.
he probably just went grab something to eat. I think I'll send her a letter in the mail. What do you think?
Oh, shoot, I think that would be...
Yeah.
That's cool.
Put it in the city letter here.
That's cool.
Who wrote that one? Hello, Your Honor. Stay well, your friend.
I think that's been up.
Or is that John's? Okay, that's John's. All right.
I think March of the
value.
Okay.
They don't,
I don't know.
they don't have to say a specific dollar amount. And normally it's the property owner's responsibility. That's what I thought. I always thought that. The one concern I have, and this is something I wanted to talk to Nate about, is was this one of those where we did a letter, you know, because they had downspouts running into their sump pumps and they were trying to, it was a defect, pilot that we had major defects in language. So I wondered, either disconnected or ran something out that created an issue, because that's where potentially we might be at fault.
We would be
Normally, I think it's the responsibility of the homeowners, and there's certainly got to be an argument made, incurred for this, you know, contributory negligence, because, you know, if regardless of the slip and fall case, it doesn't have to necessarily be Brad. Anybody that's going to be raised by the insurance company.
See, and that's what said he might have done.
You were doing it wrong, so you saw that it was wet.
I mean, he may have listed everyone
You stepped on it
already
anyway.
in the lawsuit.
And the alternative is, or he didn't, didn't see it, then do it yourself and keep a lookout. You know, so it's one of those arguments that no matter what the answer is, there's a counter to it. So I'm sure that would be raised, whether or
Oh, maybe it
He
is.
said, I didn't think there was court. You know, they're serious in the injuries, I'm sure that.
Who on home?
I don't know.
I think Phyllis mentioned that.
Well, how would they be
I
involved?
think they didn't. We know.
Didn't Jeremy look
You'd
up
have
who
to
owns
prove
it?
the city
He
to
said
be
Jack Tracy.
Jeff
negligent.
Bracey.
Huh?
Jeff Bracey.
Yeah. But wouldn't you have to prove the city to be negligent?
Well, he's claiming it because it's a city sidewalk.
Tim? You don't know if he already maybe went to the homeowner, and the homeowner says, not my sidewalks. And you don't know
I
that?
don't have a clue. I mean, this is a tort claim notice is just the first step in the process of bringing an action against the city if it doesn't get resolved. And if you don't file something like that within 180 days, then you're barred from pursuing an action against the municipality. So it's just preserving the right to pursue a claim at a later time.
And I also know that Brad Logan had a bad back before you got home. He's had a bad back for a long time.
Has he? I mean, I used to coach with Brad when our kids were in softball. Yeah, but that's been a long time ago, so I don't know.
When did the fall take place?
July 8th.
July 8th. That almost bet you, because Kelly Logan is a big baseball person. I remember the last couple of years you're posting stuff about pray for Brad. He's flat on his back on the couch. Now, granted, a fall wouldn't help matters.
Well,
Facebook?
Pardon?
Well, and see, that's another argument is, you know, was it a pre-existing condition? So there's a lot of issues that would, if it got to, you know, if it got to that point, it would be raised.
I tried to call him here. Where's the cutoff line?
Do I still need to speak to John and Bill?
They probably listed the three of them as Board of Works.
The Bill Crone.
But I didn't.
Oh, Bill to the council. Okay.
I didn't want to ruin John's last day, because he's still
She wouldn't ruin my
I didn't want to ruin
I know.
his first day.
I brought it up, so I'm sorry. I ruined it. Because I got notice. We do need to give it to our insurance carrier if we have it. We have a duty to disclose any claim that we're aware of, so they'll probably assign an adjuster to it, and then they'll review it. We had, I think, even it was when Dwayne was still city attorney, we had somebody that slipped and fell on a city sidewalk and they sued the city. That was down on 2nd Street somewhere, if I remember right.
Probably good.
And it ultimately got resolved for a small amount, just basically a nuisance factor. But the cost comes in just defending yourself.
Mhm.
And we have to pay at least the deductible, which at that time was $5,000. I don't know if that's still what it is or not. But
It was Cuban. This is off the record. But when we had our soup and sandwich meal at Zion, somebody called me and said, would you help this lady carry her food out? I said, sure. There was a pecan pie right on the top of the box of food. I said, well, that pecan pie might not make it out to her car. I was joking. Well, I stepped off the sidewalk and fell right on my face. The pecan pie and all the food went flying. I landed on my face, hit my head, and had big knot. They called EMS and all this stuff. It was amazing. I was more embarrassed than anything, but it was just a little sidewalk or a little ledge that I stepped off of. And Joanne said, my wife, laughing, said, well, maybe we can sue. I said, that's kind of like suing me, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, really?
I mean, I'm the president of Zion, and so it was embarrassing. I mean,
They
really,
didn't give you that job anymore, but...
I don't think they'll let me take food out next year. I did. But the pecan pie made it to her car, but it wasn't me.
Wasn't intact.
Wasn't me carrying it.
Is Melissa going to be here tonight?
Excuse me?
Melissa, is she going to be here tonight?
Yes. Saw your mother this morning. Pretty awesome news, huh?
No, that's
That was
me.
great.
Which means that we got used to
Yeah.
30,000 from our funds.
Exactly. But still.
I'd say, somebody else posted it, I'm glad they did, but it said, you know, fantastic job, now they can move on to another project.
Oh, gee.
Well,
They'd have to have the same desire, wouldn't they?
they have others like that. We just need to get more people involved, willing to do what they do. You know, we've had two great examples of how that grassroots effort accomplishes the park and
Yep.
now the Pensy Depot.
Exactly.
So tangible proof of what can be done. You know, for people to say, well, what can I do? I'm just one person. Well, roll up your sleeves and get involved, and you can do things. You can make things happen.
I remember when we first were talking about the Pensy Depot and doing this and that, I said, well, I think I can get somebody that would really help. And I thought of Clete Miller. And so one day I stopped and he told him, I said, and I was thinking maybe at Betty Miller Park and all that, and Clete was big into trains and this kind of stuff. And Clete just smiled and he said, I don't think so. And it just kind of brought me down because I thought, gee, this would be the ultimate shoe-in, you know, but the way it turned out is fine too.
And there's some other people I know that were approached that certainly have the means to make a significant impact. And I think there's just there's somewhat of a mentality, a reservation that this kind of would prove it to me. Like, I don't have faith that this is going to...
You can get it done.
Well, that it's going to be used correctly.
Right.
After it's all said and done. And I think that's obviously probably the next phase that we need to look at it from a city perspective and work with the Parks Department and say, okay, what are the guidelines going to be, and, you know, the rental fees, reservation, who's going to take care of that?
Well, I think that the fact that they now have the means to finish it lets us move on to that next step, and that is to lay the groundwork of how it's going to be used. And, you know, before it was kind of the hope that it's going to be a reality.
Matt, how you guys coming?
Maybe we can, don't they have, I know they bring, do they
that's right, it
bring
was
down the train from
long
Fort
time.
Wayne?
There's one train that they can, but the big 765 they can't, and that has to do with the track, and that's probably that's a whole other ballgame battle we need to fight with the railroad.
It was a 3-week span.
And I forget exactly what the issue was, but the guys, the local train folks know what the issue is.
What the issue is?
But there is a smaller freight, there's a military freight one that they can bring down.
They can.
So, yeah, you know, and I've reached out to the Fort Wayne Train, whatever society, and I didn't get a response, but because they're talking about doing dinner trains.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the comment to them, I said, this would be a great place to come for a dessert stop. And you can get out and do the. We could have transportation for you. We could do the sculpture
walk.
and get back on and head back.
People want
And
to
you
walk
heard that?
downtown, they can walk down to the ice cream
I'll follow
shop.
up with him.
Yeah.
He's a Kelly young guy. He does video editing. He put the video. He did all the stuff for the regional cities video. Kelly Lynch.
Picture in the city calendar was neat with the train right next to the depot. That was neat.
Isn't there like a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit on that track, though?
It's a very low speed limit.
I mean, it's a 2-hour trip from New Haven to Decatur, I think.
The whole way.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I would encounter those trains coming home sometimes on Minnick and
Minnick.
sometimes on Adams Center, and yeah, they just cut it along.
It's kind of frightening when you look up and you see a train coming. You don't expect it because normally there isn't one there and there's
Yeah.
no cross arms to stop. And
Yeah.
I think what we need to do is like Huntington did, though, and I've told John and Larry Macklin, I think we need to get a quiet zone indicator. A quiet zone, so in other words, with cross arms down, they don't
They'll have
meet.
to blow the whistle.
They don't have to blow the whistle. I think that would really help the residents all around that area. And even, I mean, I can hear it as far as the
You're
golf
talking
course.
Washington Street, basically?
I'm talking all, every place has drop arms. I think the only area may be Nutman. I may not have drop arms, but all the other intersections have.
Washington?
Yep.
That doesn't, yeah.
All the so,
so why did they blow? Why did they?
I don't know.
Because Horatio
The arms are
Hornblower's a
down.
maniac, that's why.
I think you need to develop a quiet zone. That's what Huntington did. They called their city a quiet zone. It took a while for them to do it, but they got it done.
We need
Good
to
idea, Bill.
We need to talk to Jeremy because I think Jeremy's talked to them about it or checked into it. You're right. I think it takes a long time to get that in place.
Right. I just remember reading that Huntington got it done, and it wasn't a short fix. It took a lot of pursuit. And since I told Larry Macklin, since we actually helped them with that bridge out there, helped Soya, and Soya's the only one that are actually bringing trains down. Nobody else is doing
Yeah,
it.
the one guy down there at Adams, Adams Lumber.
That's been done that a long time.
Yeah.
But I think we need to even talk to them about actually having turnaround capability because it's a dead end. There is you cannot turn around the train. So if you're really trying to get tourism and stuff down here, we got to provide them a way to, which I think could be done down there behind Adams. That spur, they have to back up and then come back.
Yeah.
But
That used to be an east-west route, didn't it? It used to go through Preble, and it went clear to Huntington, didn't it?
It's just a shame that they let those right-of-ways go back to the property.
Oh, sure.
I mean, you look at all the upper trails.
Yeah.
you have to go piece by piece. You got to get right away.
You'd have had a natural way to just develop trails. They just don't end.
Favorite community I was in yesterday, I saw it. I mean, the track is still in good, seems decent shape, but it's all grass growing up.
Mhm.
It was Bluffton. Which one it was? You guys always wait on us like this?
You what?
Do you always wait on us like this?
John usually had a few more things. That's fine. Yeah, a lot of times we kind of wait until you guys finish up reviewing claims.
Sorry, Ken, we got new guys. They ask questions. Good thing.
Probably that guy in the blue sweater there.
Yeah. We're checking right now to see if anybody knows the answer.
Was the one to John Deere Financial, was that, I heard that.
Yeah, that was one.
What do we lease? Or what do we pay interest
Oh, I didn't know if there
on?
was any leases. He said it might be through Rural King here, this time.
It's Rural King's credit card company.
No, this is screws, brushes, goes, polymer.
Look under John.
King or Rural King?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're all Rural King.
Okay, check. Appreciate it. Knowledge. I'll check.
Is it normal that somebody would, he would never have talked to see anybody, or is that whole point, like, you couldn't talk to any of us if you plan on doing this?
Well, as a courtesy, I probably would have expected somebody to say, hey, are you guys aware? But it's a procedural thing that they have to do. They don't do it within 180 days, and they're barred from bringing the suit. So they're just keeping that option open. But, yeah, I mean, I would have thought somebody would have said something to us early on.
Well, even if it was actually a drain that the property owner had installed, I suppose if we told them they had to do it.
And that's where I'm curious whether it had anything to do with those defect letters. Because if it did, and in many instances, they authorized us to go and correct the issue. So what I want to know is, did we do it? You know, did we disconnect and maybe we just run out something and just empty the sidewalk? If we did, well then now we've potentially gotten ourselves involved in this.
I've got a super question then. Benny's over here. They had a spout went down.
They disconnected it.
Okay, but he disconnected it at the top. And when they have a rain,
It just pours down.
well, it just
Yeah.
spreads all around. And Jeremy, I said something to Jeremy. He said, I don't know what we do. I mean, if that's our,
Disconnect at the top?
yeah.
Well, if we didn't do that, did we?
No,
They did.
yeah, Chris did.
Then
And
he
it-
assumes the responsibility.
Okay. Well, doesn't the homeowner have a responsibility if we ask them
Normally, the
to
rule
divert
is-
their
But
water?
he's saying if they let us come on their property to do it.
Oh.
See, on a lot of those
Gotcha.
letters, they authorized us to come and
Okay.
offered to do it. And so my question is this one of them that we did?
Right, and they would have that list, right?
Oh, yeah. Nate probably.
Hey, Nate, come here. Please?
He is a new attorney in Greenville.
Nope.
I didn't know. He used to be economic development director a long time ago. And then he went to law school.
Who's that?
Stacy Summers.
We need you.
Oh, yeah.
And
At your convenience, so you can put their firm.
I'll be darned.
yeah, he must have joined that.
Race. 221
He was
North
he,
3rd Street.
he was
I'm not positive it's Jack.
young guy.
I just think when there was 221 North 3rd,
When he
never
was
said
hired-
anything about their downspouts.
Who's the
Let's see here.
Bill
Bradley
Bradley?
was the original one.
Bill Bradley, and then Stacy was the third person, or somebody else on the team, just for a short period of time out of Bradley. No. And then Stacy, I think Mike followed Stacy. But anyway, Stacy went to law school, and he was working up in Fort Wayne for a couple of years. But he must be down here now.
How long's Larry been there?
Mike, he followed Mike.
Water coming
And Mike left when he He was in the state legislature.
Third Street, sewer disconnect.
Yeah.
When would he have been at the State House? Because then he took a job somewhere else.
He precede Layman?
Yeah. When he resigned right at the last second for somebody to file, it was as soon as that Mike was going to run. And like the last day, instead of him, he announced that he wasn't running, and Matt filed his paperwork, so he was unopposed.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Tim?
Yes.
I'm back to 2014. Asking for prayer. To make Brad isn't prepared for assurance after the box. Things I want for prayer. Brad, you're nobody that's covered.
Careful your friends were on.
It doesn't say that. And I can keep going back further. Excuse me. Where she started asking.
You get to sit in this seat until I get up, and then you get my seat. I can handle that. Now, if you want my seat and tell me to get in that seat, you can do that.
The only thing is,
I'm appointed and you're elected. That makes a world of difference.
Been on the couch after surgery in 2014.
This is where I'm at.
But it doesn't
say
back
back.
surgery, so.
Don't worry, it won't be the next.
Works, so I guess.
I don't know.
But you think it's got to be signed by districts, whichever district you're serving.
Yeah,
Probably said here.
Tyler, don't worry, you'll get a sewer.
Those are things that the...
Sure, Cam used to sit where Matt's at.
Yes, that's a total of everything I went over.
Now, it's like somebody that has gone back and hurt consider.
All right, now the council has joined us. Let's talk.
Then it's a percentage.
It works every year.
Hi, Wiley. Councilman Koshaw, how are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Couple things. First of all, the very first thing is just for your own, make a note of this and let me or Phyllis know as soon as you can. The State of the City is next Monday at the hospital, and I need to know who plans to attend.
I'll be there.
Isn't it at the hospital?
State of the City, address at Woodcrest.
Is it at Woodcrest this time?
Oh, that's where
It was at the hospital last year.
I don't know.
I've got a note on it. I'll
It's
find
probably
out.
Woodcrest. Last year they were
So they
renovating. They were renovating Woodcrest.
Yeah, so maybe
So
Woodcrest.
normally the chamber is always.
I'll send you an email tomorrow.
They have a dinner, and then they go over to where the chapel is.
Yeah,
and that's where
right.
Monday, the 11th, and I'm not sure of the time even. Noon, probably.
That was
Quarter till
so
12.
that's really not yours.
11:45. You're on top of it, Wiley. And then the second thing is the chamber dinner is February 4th, and the city usually has a table of 2, and that's for spouses as well. If anyone is wanting to attend the chamber dinner, let me know if it'd be
I will let you
solo
know.
or with spouse. And Bill, you as well.
And you said that first one's January 11th.
Next Monday, and then the chamber dinner is February 4th.
It's going to be Monday the 11th,
Yeah.
and that's at what time, I'm sorry?
11:45, I believe is what Wiley said.
You think it's at Woodcrest?
It is.
Yeah. I'll follow up with an email to you all.
He better just verify it
Yeah.
if they try to do something tricky.
The last 2 days has been kind of crazy. I felt like I talked to Craig, told him I'd get right back to him. It took me about 18 hours to get back to him, and it just, Phyllis won't leave me alone. No, I'm just overwhelmed in there. People keep coming and going, and I'm not sure what I'm doing yet. So it's great. It's all good. It's great.
We'll give you a week. You know,
Give me a week. Thank you, Matt.
that was from before.
Tonight, we will be making an appointment to the solid waste district, and Matt is currently serving on the Community Corrections Board and will continue to. Tyler is on the Plan Commission, correct, Tyler? Am I getting this right? Cam is on the Board of Works, and that leaves Wiley and Craig, and I am planning to appoint Craig this evening to the Economic Development Commission, which only leaves one council member without an official appointment, and that, like I said, that appointment is to the Solid Waste District, but it's not my appointment, it's yours. So
It's a short one.
keep that in mind.
Council or Board of Work?
It's a council appointment, we'll do that later, just kind of briefing you on that. But,
And I plan on nominating Wiley.
so we
Heads up.
And Craig has already accepted the opportunity to serve on the economic development, so.
Does that need to be a matter of record, a public record? I'm just curious. We did that council the last meeting just kind of quick.
What's that?
The Board of Works appointed me to the Plan Commission.
I've got all the certificate of appointments
Solid
for
waste
the
is the council.
everything that we've done and are going to do.
But I just wondered if we need to make it a
Tim's the attorney.
public record or macro record?
Yeah,
I'm
we
just-
will.
At the next,
Oh,
in a little bit.
Okay, my fault.
Okay, so now we need to have some discussion on a couple of things. One, first and foremost, First Street property acquisition. We have 3 signed agreements. Rice Realty, help me, Tim.
Mr. and Mrs. Ortiz.
Mr. and Mrs. Ortiz and Corey Affolber have all signed agreements. We're working with the Loshis and
Waiting for a response from them, and then Mark's...
Mark Seating is...
We have tentative agreement, we're just working out some details to finish that one up. Mr. and Mrs., or the Loshi Trust, we're waiting to, for a response back. We submitted a proposed agreement to them, and Ken emailed them this afternoon as a follow-up to John's delivery of that proposal, just to inquire whether they're willing to accept it or not. And then the Macklin property, Mayor Schultz was in discussions with the Macklin family, I think Steve in particular, and there's tentative agreement on, there are actually 3 parcels, and so there's a little bit different compensation on one compared to the other 2. There's a cash payment for 2 of the 3 properties, and then there's a smaller cash payment and demolition of an existing building that the city would undertake in order to get an easement to go across those 3 parcels. There's 2 other elements to it. One, I think the family's concerned about the riverbank, so we try to maintain stabilization of that as best we can. I know Nate and I have talked a little bit about that, so we'll probably include something because they've requested that. And then the last thing that will be part of that transaction there's been a request that a undeveloped alley be vacated. The alley runs from First Street out to the river, so it's perpendicular to First Street, okay? And it's never been developed. There's really no point in developing it, but we may want to work with the Macklin family to at least maintain some type of ingress-egress easement, even if it's vacated. And I don't know if there's existing utilities there now. If there are, then those don't get vacated. Those would still remain. Okay. So what I'll do there is I'll put together a proposal, and if that's acceptable, then that'll be signed, and then we'll start moving forward with taking the steps that need to be taken in order to finish that up. And then that would pretty much, other than the Loshi property, that would take care of all the properties on First Street for the sewer project from Jefferson down to Monroe. Then the intent is that we would bore under 224, and then we would continue north with the interceptor, the new interceptor, as well as the relief sewer. Relief sewer ends, Nate, at the tank, is that correct?
Correct.
The blue tank down there by Lidl's.
Monroe and goes down, goes around what was First Purchase Bank,
Right.
essentially, and then up to the tank.
And then the interceptor will continue on north, go through Stanley's property, go north of the Zwick's funeral home, and there's 2 or 3 properties up that direction. So we'll be obtaining easements from them. The Stanley property, we intend to buy the property. The problem is that there's a mortgage on it. When Mr. Stanley contacted the company that has the mortgage, they were somewhat difficult. They made a lot of demands for information, required payment up front that was non-refundable. No guarantee that they would even give a partial release to the property that we want to buy. So in the meantime, I asked Nate to check with Mr. and Mrs. Stanley. Would they at least give us an easement for the time being? We'll still work with them to try to get the property purchased. We'll pay them for the easement. If we do have the ability to buy it, then the amount we pay for the easement would be applied to the purchase. So it eliminates a delay for the project, which we're trying to avoid. So
Why vacate the alley? Is that a request from the...
that's a request on the Macklin's
Do we
part.
know why? What's the...
I don't know if they intend at some point to maybe pave that and they just want to have control over it. That's my guess. I don't know for sure.
How wide are those easements that we're discussing behind Zwick's and the Stanley property?
I think it's right over.
Or did I write it wrong place?
Yeah, I think it's
For
right
the
over.
remainder of the floodplain area, it's almost about 4 acres, I believe, of that property would be all easement. And the intent is to use the same legal description for the easement that we would use for the acquisition.
The purchase of this.
But at one time, we discussed, I don't know if it's something to discuss, putting a, down by where the Riverview Tavern was, or it still is, putting a bridge or taking some old pre-stressed, and putting it across there for a walkway, and then have a walkway from that point clear up to the back of the properties we're discussing with easements.
Okay.
Is that something that may be looked into in the future? You know what I
We
mean?
could look into it,
You know.
certainly. With the sewer there, we're going to have to be mindful of that, and any bridge structure would be its own independent study. But the easements, if we can get full clear title, essentially owning the property, then it allows us to do some things with the property that otherwise we can't just with the easements.
Well, if we could put pathways in from that point clear into the,
Greenway trails and things like that could be put into those areas, that wouldn't be a problem. The bridge will have to be looked at very closely because of what would need to be done, but
Understand that,
once we own those, that wouldn't be anything that Parks couldn't theoretically do as far as taking a Greenway trail up along the river bank. That wasn't part of our discussion with the property owners during any of these easement discussions or acquisitions, though. So-
well, they're across from where the Riverview Tavern is, or whatever they call it now. We own a large part of that property clear down to our pumping station.
Yeah,
So that was discussed, so.
yeah. All things that we
Okay.
considered, I guess.
One thing that I'll mention is something that you can start kind of thinking a little bit about, because it's a longer term situation, but once the sewer project is completed, we will now have acquired a number of these properties, especially from Monroe Street down to Jefferson, and that will lend itself to development of the riverfront. And so that's something that, it may involve the Park and Rec Department. Those are things that I think we need to start thinking about longer term. It's not something that's going to happen immediately, but it gives us a lot of flexibility by acquiring the ownership, because it does give us the ability to either promote that for business use or to develop it for green space for recreational activities. And that's consistent with our comprehensive plan. It's also consistent, I think, with the park plan. So, but those are things that you guys are going to have to weigh in on because it's going to involve funding. So, as council members, I would suggest that you start giving that some thought.
Can those lots be built on after the sewer?
Portions of them. Essentially what we're going to do is we're going to carve out what we need to, because a good portion of the money that's being spent to acquire the property is coming out of sewer funds. So it needs to be obligated for that. There are other properties that are key to the planning and intention there that we're not purchasing that will need to be essentially acquired with other funds in the future to kind of make a whole project.
If we wanted to get the Rice Realty, like the buildings that Fruit owns next to it, I don't know where he came, for example. If you're going to develop that area, let's really develop all of it.
Right.
So, they were heating down Mark. Would there ever be a building beyond
Unless we got a
on the
appraisal.
street there or not?
Well, against the street, yes, because the sewer actually is closer to the riverbank in that
Mark,
location.
but that building's not coming down, right? It's just,
We're not tearing, I'm
Yeah.
not planning on
Boring.
pulling that down.
It's just
You're talking about the Schroep building?
No,
Mark Masters, okay.
and Ortiz's house, right?
Correct. The
It's
house
just,
would...
just the garages behind that are coming down.
But the city's going to own this property.
Correct, we'll own those and need to insure them, so part of what we'll end up dealing with is, okay, how long do we want to own a vacant building potentially? So all this property management decisions and discussions will have to be weighed in, because once the sewer goes in now, you have other properties that need to be checked on and monitored. Part of Ortiz's plan is to pull windows and other things out, so it's not going to be habitable after it's been demolished, or once he moves out. That's part of
The Ortiz house,
agreement.
they're taking some things out,
Yeah.
kitchen things, I think, and whatever, and
He
then...
wants some cabinets,
Yeah.
he wants some windows.
He put a lot of stuff in recently, and he's taken a lot of it out.
Now, what about the
We as the city
Mark's
can
property?
destroy
Does he
that or take it
anything out, or
down.
do we have an agreement with him yet?
We're working on the agreement. He wants to leave some things
Yeah, that
up in the
building's
upstairs
down.
and utilize it for a while, have some weight equipment,
It's not
and exercise equipment,
Because
storage, and...
I feel essentially we're going to own that property. I mean, until we're ready to do something with it, we can find somebody to rent that out. We might as well rent it out.
Well, he'll probably rent it for a while because his new place isn't going to... I mean, isn't he going to build a new place out on 27?
He bought property at auction
Yeah,
across from Kruger.
the old
The
FOP.
FOP lot.
Bomb,
Did he?
I mean, that's going to take time.
Didn't
Oh,
I'm
did he?
certain that's
He
where
may
he's
rent
looking
for
to
miles,
build.
I don't know.
He also owns next to Sports
There's a
Line, that
number of different
corner.
options for Mark, but I don't know that he's committed to new or trying
Yeah.
to find another existing facility.
He's just been, sounds
Well,
like willing to
it-
work with us.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
is.
that, and I wasn't involved in the negotiations with all these parties. John, and I don't know if Nate was involved, but John definitely was. But I know getting the commitment for the sale was to accommodate their needs in terms of when they can get out, when they, what they want to take with them, that sort of thing. So that was all built into the negotiations in order to get them to accept the price
So,
that they were
I
offering.
guess my question is, how much are we paying for the Ortiz house that's not going to be able to be lived in,
Yeah.
habitable?
The average of the two appraisals,
Yeah, it would be...
whatever that was, I don't
I
have
thought
it.
we had the...
Kind of a win situation for them, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
Was that part of the council meeting, the last council
Yeah,
meeting?
yeah.
Is that Ortiz? I don't have it with me. but
I mean, John,
think-
I know John said that they were planning on taking out furnace, windows, garage door, things like that, that they had put in recently.
So once
And aren't
that's done,
those
we want to get
spaces
the
part
thing
of
torn down
the
before it
future
turns into a
plan
disaster.
of development
Yeah.
along the river, that
It is.
most of those
That would be destroyed
buildings
anyway.
would be destroyed?
Right.
Right, right.
And as a city, we can do that.
Yeah.
So Tim, so this property is not ours until closing.
Correct.
Correct.
So then I need to let the insurance company know.
Once we close, then it's our, we have an insurable interest. Correct.
But on the Ortiz property, though, is
Nate,
he
can
living
you
in there?
describe for me, again, the purpose of that blue tank?
The existing blue tank that's there
Yeah.
is, it was originally constructed as a surge tank, so what would happen is when the 24-inch diameter interceptor sewer was inundated during flood event, it would pump water out of it and hold it in the tank to try to carry water off of the interceptor
Oh,
sewer.
was that stormwater or a combination of
It was a
water?
combination, so it was part of the combination system before. What ended up happening though was the overflow sewers, the relief sewers that are existing downtown, when that when that flood water would hit our system, it would immediately go to the discharge point, which caused sewer overflows at lower rate events, and our storage tank wasn't full. In 2014, we did a repiping project and interconnected both the interceptor pump that would pump water out of the interceptor into the tank and our relief sewers into the tank. So all of our water goes through that storage tank before it causes what's a combined sewer overflow. So now, before we didn't really have a 1 million gallon storage, now we have a 1 million gallon storage tank that was there for about $180,000, which is about 10 cents on the dollar when we paid to build a new one. So the intent is to try to make use of that now with the project that we're proposing is to try to get the river water from getting into our system, which is what's causing a significant number of our CSO events.
And that's what the new piping will
The
do.
new piping is, the intent is to get that away from the river because we've done, the more I learn the history, the more problems we've had with the interceptor than I think anybody remembers. It's about every decade there's been something, a major fix, a disaster. There's been some letters that I found from '77 when there was a problem, an emergency fix that caused some problems. There was a major lining project back in the 80s where the interceptor had been lined before, so we talked about, can't we rehab it? It's been rehabbed. It was built in '59, it was rehabbed in '82, it had emergency fixes in '77, and we've done other replacement work in the '90s, so this isn't a new issue, it's just there's transitions between all of these. It makes it about 15 years, and then we're spending more money on it. So getting it out of a bad location is really going to be our best bet, or hopefully I'll be presenting some new fix in 15 years again, so
And
I
for
don't want to have to do that.
Craig and Tyler and Wiley's benefit, I mean, if you go back and look a few years ago when we were dealing with Commonwealth, their solution was that we just build more storage tanks.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was based on the data that they had developed. Well, in the meantime, John asked a different company to come in, and they started doing an assessment and determined that the major problem was the interceptor. And that, you know, you could build more storage tanks, but that's just treating the symptoms. That's not solving or treating the underlying problem. So when it was found that the interceptor was a major issue, that's when it was determined that the interceptor needed to be pulled out of the riverbank. That's what prompted this project. And then the relief sewer should provide relief from overloading the system so that we shouldn't have backups in downtown basements like we had when we closed a couple of the CSOs after the former engineering firm told us we were safe to do so. And no sooner we did it, we had 2 major rain events, and we had flooding twice in about 4 months. So, you know, that prompted John to open the CSOs up against items directive, and so then that led to the agreed order, and that is what we've been working with ever since, and that's why we're in the process of gearing up for this project.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So, you know, the idea is if you, excuse me, if you can eliminate a major source of how the river water is getting into our sewer, getting to our sewer plant, then you can probably minimize the storage capacity that you may have to build in the end, which, you know, maybe we can avoid it entirely if we are successful enough to show that we've reduced the amount of stormwater that's getting to our sanitary treatment plants to satisfy item.
For those of you who weren't part of those discussions, we were under an agreed order with IDEM to do, it was as much as, my estimates were as much as $20 million of work by 2018. We went back to IDEM and said, well, this isn't going to work for us, the projects that they've developed and what we have for rates. We would like to open up our agreed order and renegotiate it, and here's what we'd like to do first to then see what is most cost effective, because the results that Commonwealth had laid out was extreme and didn't address the river interceptor issues, so all the modeling I brought into question, saying that the modeling is inadequate. It doesn't characterize what we actually have. So we asked to do the interceptor relocation now, do a relief sewer bypass, get all this water into the storage tank that we have now, the blue tank, let that work like it's supposed to, and then do a new set of monitoring, and then after that monitoring's been done, which will now be in 2018, then we can decide if we need additional storage, and if so, we're going to reevaluate how we want to approach that. And that what that does is it lowers our estimated cost for all of this phase and the next phase that we do from $20 million to maybe somewhere in the range of 12 to 15. And beyond that, we have additional years to do maintenance and upgrade work with that long-term vision in mind. So our maintenance and operations funding can be targeted at smoke testing, defects, some ordinance work that we'd like to do to try to get some defects, some cross connections dealt with on a residential level, do the little stuff while the big projects are working on in the common vision, and hopefully we can eliminate phase 4 entirely, but that's what we're all striving for. So, but a lot of things have to work together. We need to see some good results, but the planning is there, the vision's there, and it's backed with some good modeling from multiple firms that we're working with. So, versus taking one person's word for it and saying, yeah, this will work, but we have some low-hanging fruit we want to deal with after spending $24 million. There's a few little things that you need to do too. Let's do those and see where it ends up. It was a bad direction for us. So.
Well, I think the other thing is, we were led to believe that a $3.4 million project to build these storage tanks was going to be a big part of the solution, and come to find out after really looking at the agreed order that was the tip of the iceberg, that there were far greater costs coming down the road that nobody bothered to inform the city. So that made us start looking at a lot of things, and I think that's ultimately what probably prompted John to decide that he wanted to go a different direction with a different company.
Even more First Street.
Now, there are some other properties that we're looking at some easements on. The Chamber property, I mentioned what was First Merchants Bank. There's an easement there. We're in discussion with Conklin and Zwigs. Those are some of the easements that are also as part of this overall project. What we acquire or don't acquire is kind of what I'm holding off Clark East and finishing up their design to make sure we've got those in place, or at least the purchase agreements in place so that they can finish up their design. So once we have all that, then we're in very good shape to try to finish the project up and hopefully get it out to bid. I think we're still targeting March as an advertisement time frame. So once those agreements are in place, we can close in April and try to get construction, I think it said maybe targeting start May 1st. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
Seeing Greg here and Melissa here and Cam is here, all part of the Greater Decatur group. I think Melissa sent an email out to all the Stellar group that the information on the 2016 Stellar is now out there. And Melissa has sent an email out to the current Greater Decatur group asking them of their interest in Stellar 2016, yes or no. And
no comment at this time.
Okra has released information that they will have a webinar on the 2016 Stellar Communities Program on next Wednesday from 2 to 4. It's no commitment. We would just be learning about what the program entails this year. So I'm happy to watch it and learn and report back, or if Stellar is really dead to us, I can...
that term has been used. I forgot you were part of that group
we
too.
can ignore. But what I remind the Greater Decatur today is at our town hall meeting where Bill Kanye was here, they indicated that there would be 2 new state agencies joining and partners this year. One coming with funding, and that being the Indiana Arts Council. On their list of state agency partners this year, the Arts Council is not included on the list.
It's not.
It's not.
I think it's worth listening to. I mean, you got to.
I think we should, just so we know,
I think
so we know.
I mean, obviously, I think we're getting updates later on some of the other projects that we're moving forward with that were in previous applications. I think it would have to look different than our previous.
It would have to look incredibly different for our recommendations to change from what it is now.
I guess the question I have in the back of my mind is, do we have the ability to prepare and do everything on our own?
In-house, yeah.
What did it cost last time to apply for that? I mean,
6.
Oh, what we... No, it was more
More
like
than that.
30.
Yeah.
Oh,
to apply.
Contracts
Well,
with
the contract-
Christie, and
yeah.
then
The
we
first
paid a few dollars to the engineering.
The first fee was just for the letter of interest, and that was 5 or 6, I think. And then if we're shortlisted and all the work that goes into the final application, it was another 20 something.
Right.
Not saying that wasn't valuable. I mean, we
Right.
certainly had getting all our ducks in a row and understanding what we're moving forward. But it does beg the question: are these what capabilities do we have now that we're familiar enough with it, and we have enough to do it all?
And I think the other thing was the dramatic difference in funding.
Right.
You know,
Right.
the first year,
It's way
The
higher.
juice worth the squeeze.
Yeah, that's a good
They
point.
haven't indicated any values this year as to,
I would think that we would learn about those values
In the webinar.
webinar.
So it's definitely worth putting you through that.
To be responsible, to make an
Yeah,
informed
to make
decision,
a,
we should watch the webinar.
And while you're-
Watch the webinar.
because that's no commitment whatsoever.
Right.
What it is some time, whoever's in there.
It's 2 hours to listen to them explain the rules for this year.
Yeah.
And honestly, a letter of interest doesn't cost us
Anything either.
anything either.
Some timeline, the webinar is next Wednesday. January 27th is the informational workshop we attended last year at Fort Bend in Indianapolis. The letter of intent due date is March 11th.
okay.
The timeline is similar to last year.
I just wanted the council to be aware that the Greater Decatur Group has been emailed. Melissa will be viewing, as I said, the webinar. A few others hopefully will be joining you, possibly.
If we have enough, we can put it on in here and I'll watch it.
Mhm. And while I have you here,
The board.
this morning, Melissa, myself, Jeremy, Sandy Collier met with
Tony Murray.
and Tony Murray. We met with Kevin McCrory, and I don't know the other guy's name. Somebody from Jones Petrie, yeah, out of South Bend he was. Just to discuss more about application. Go ahead, Melissa.
We've agreed to apply to Okra for a $400,000 grant for development of the Madison Street Plaza project. That application will be due in June. Our legwork right now is, in order to even be able to apply, we have to have clearance from 7 state agencies as part of an environmental review. And so Kevin is assisting us with getting a design, a preliminary design, a preliminary budget, some of those kind of details, so we can get that information out and get approval back from the 7 state agencies. That's kind of our phase 1 that we're working on right now.
Is my mom and Tony, are they the extent of the design committee?
Max Miller is also on the design committee. He was not able to attend
Yeah.
today.
That's Main Street.
Yeah.
They're the ones.
And
And everybody had very nice, thoughtful input today, so I feel good about what our end product is going to be.
And Melissa, this will act as kind of a template then for expanding the streetscape development throughout downtown. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, the actual plan that he'll submit is not just Marshall. It'll probably
Madison.
Madison. It'll possibly entail a half a block going both directions on 2nd Street. Not saying that we'll do that, at this time, but it'll show it. It's just kind of a complimentary thing, and you know, he can include as much as we want him to.
Just kind of addendum to this. St. Francis, the University of St. Francis reached out to me and wanted to see if the City of Decatur would be interested in partnering with them to go after a National Endowment for the Arts grant. They've submitted 2 times with the City of Fort Wayne and have decided that they would rather work with the City of Decatur.
Cool. Great.
It's up to $100,000. St. Francis would take the lead on it. They need a non-governmental entity. So I suggested North Adams Arts Council.
This is looking at me.
And I told her about this beforehand, so she heard about it 30 minutes ago. But anyway, so it's kind of an exciting opportunity, and this would be student involvement. I think the opportunity to get engaged with them a little bit further and have them in our community beyond the marketing of the Second Street Lofts project could be pretty substantial for our community. Even you know, they host art classes for the community, and when I was on the phone with her. Actually, Erin sent out an email about children art classes at St. Francis, and so I said, well, look at here, I'm talking, and she said, you know, that's a great example. We could bring art classes to Decatur. But what the nature of this grant, what it's going to do, I think that's all to be hashed out. But the initial thought is, how do we take the Second Street Lofts programming into our community? How do we take it out there and make it part of the streets? How do we make it a part of the, you know, what the Arts Council is doing? So it's kind of exciting, but I think more than anything that they saw value in us and wanted to be partners.
Great. Do we want to
We're meeting on
talk in that or not?
Yes.
Yeah, we probably should talk a little bit.
Okay. Is Jeremy's here now?
Is Melissa going to say anything about the Pensy?
Oh, at the council meeting.
Okay.
She will, yeah. On her report, about the Pensy Depot, yeah, at the council meeting. The only other thing I have, and then I would like to dismiss early, and I would like, I know Craig and Tyler and Wiley probably have never been upstairs here. I'd like to have Nate take us on a tour of the upstairs here, just for the purposes of future, long-term plans of what we may want to do with that up there. It's not going to be cheap to do it, but it's just something we want to start thinking about, putting in long-range plans. Lastly, Jeremy sent an email out asking about possible NDOT projects that we might want to do. He has kind of a source that's kind of let him know that, yeah, come on up, that there's likely going to be some call for projects, is that how you say it, or what? Yeah, and that we should be ready to submit if we so desire to do that. Now, we're not talking about just asking for a street to be repaved or whatever. We're talking about projects. And there were 2 projects that we've had on our past lists of projects, one being the Monroe Street Bridge, which was part of the Stellar application, and the 5 Points Roundabout, which was kind of put on a short list after the last Stellar application, but nonetheless, those would probably be the 2 projects that we may be looking at. So, Jeremy?
Yeah, it was just more so just a communication back and forth. Many of you asked the last several months to keep you informed, and if and when we start hearing any rumors or any good source that something could be coming. I've heard it from a couple different people, so it's getting more common knowledge, I will say. So I just kind of want to forward it on to you guys, and you guys can think about it. You have a little bit of time to determine which direction you want to go, if any, and so we can be prepared.
If NDOT monies are going to be available, absolutely, we should be interested in one or both projects.
What's your feeling on their appetite for that bridge? I mean, given the history, this kind of broke after Stellar about the fact that
The
the
surface
service
is-
life on it is still,
Pretty lengthy.
You're talking 20, 25 years before they would really consider doing a whole lot more with the bridge after Baker and Schultz. That was one of their, I wouldn't say one of their last, but one of their more current projects that they've done before they closed up. They liked the plan. Talking with David and talking with Greg, they really liked what you guys have in mind. You know, I suggested today to Tim and Ken that we have kind of a small group meeting with them. You know, kind of more of a meet and greet, you know, with Ken and
Relationship
straight up
building
with
and,
them.
yeah.
You know,
Ask
good
him his
leadership
thoughts.
really on this project. You know, what would be our chances? What would be your support? Because you're going to have to carry their support because they are the scoring committee
yeah.
for this area.
I think the other thing to think about, and what's his name? GAI. Mark Jesse.
Mark Jesse's not there.
Yeah, he's not there anymore, but he had brought up before, he said, you know, based on kind of funding and where NDOT stands right now, if you went after that and you were awarded that, how long would it be before you would be, you know, even looked at for another project? And is this roundabout, it's a little harder sell, a lot harder sell, but is that a bigger impact and because of the price tag worthy of pursuing?
One other thing in the meeting that we had, kind of one-on-one like we're trying to set up with Ken, was I look within the next year to 2 years, they're going to pave this out here, probably in conjunction with the racing of the 224. So we need to have some conversation with NDOT, and we already have, late last fall, about, you know, kind of the plans in this area through here and such, to possibly coordinate some of that with their paving project and basically let them know what we're after on our side, you know, from the edge of the curve back and so on and so forth, what we're looking at. Some of that could be cost shared, not a lot, but, you know, if we're in that position when that time comes, you know, with the sidewalks, they would handle the ADA compliancy and any adjustments with the ramps and so on and so forth. If you wanted to redo your light poles and stuff like that, that would be what they classify as a Z item, where you would pay 100%. But that's something that could be included in the whole scheme of their repaving project and so on and so forth.
But as it is, it's not like we can go out there and put our own lights up in there right away, right? I mean,
They're getting a little bit more flexible with some of that stuff. They're basically wanting to get rid of it, everything from the edge of the pavement back. So they're getting a lot more lenient on a lot of that stuff. The sidewalks and stuff, they don't want to deal with the sidewalks anymore. They're just pretty much straight up tell you, Department of Transportation is getting out of the sidewalk business. They're getting out of paying for the sidewalks and stuff. They will handle the ramps and the intersections, but it's more so of, you know, if we choose that we want to do the improvement from the bridge to 3rd Street, for an example, you know, we need to communicate with them on what our plans are, and then if it works out where they can include a portion or a little or none, you know, we know ahead of time before the paving.
it's like a decorative intersection, that would be all added
That's
cost
ours.
would be on us.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is maybe I'm behind on this, but what's NDOT going to do to the bridge that the city can, or but what's it? Is it just to make it look nicer, or are they going to go for something that's just?
Well, the idea was initially that we were looking to do a cantilever. The initial proposal was to do a cantilever walkway on the north side of the bridge that would enhance pedestrian safety crossing the bridge. And it would then tie into the River Greenway Trail. That was what was proposed the first time around in Stellar. The second time, we modified that, went away from the cantilever and decided to try to take the deck itself and make a wider sidewalk that would then
possibly be
The wider sidewalk on the north side.
on the north side, but it would be blocked off to provide greater safety to pedestrians. You know, the idea was also to incorporate public art into that.
Melissa, do you have a
But
rendering?
again, that's at our cost. And the second thing is NDOT has certain restrictions on what you can and can't do. And so that would be something that we'd really have to work very closely with them in order to get them to approve
And I
it.
think the second year modification of that widened sidewalk on the north side would force a shift in the lane.
Right, and that's where they
Now
kind
we're
of have
talking
a
about the
problem.
surface, which was just redone, still has 20, 30 years left on it, so why would they tear that up?
fish to fry in that bridge, right? I guess, to me, looking at it, I don't understand where NDOT would want to even pay for anything on that bridge. It's all sidewalks and...
The majority of it would not. The majority of the bridge project would basically fall under that C item. There would be a few things that they would pick up, but you know, with these projects, you pay 20% federal highway, and NDOT pays 80%. It would be more.
The only thing NDOT would really be doing would be the paving of the...
Moving the lane.
Moving the lanes.
Which kind of begs the question, if the cost is going to be on us,
Why would we want NDOT to...
yeah, what's the bigger bang for a buck?
Well,
And if that's, and then almost go back to say, would they fund the cantilever? No? Probably not.
It's all aesthetic.
These budget pages are just a reminder of what each of those projects, the cost, the budget,
Preliminary
the
estimates.
stellar plan.
So is the 220, raising 224, is that already a done deal?
yeah.
Mhm.
That's from the bridge out. That's after the
Wouldn't it be
bridge,
nice
just
to have
after the
a
bridge out.
man bridge?
It's nothing that you have to decide on tonight. Just kind
Oh, yeah.
of sleep on some of this and kind of think
Crud
about
and trample.
your half probably before we hear much from them.
There's some areas,
Then you're having another month or two
Maybe
to
that's
some
what
of the
get your
stuff
ducks
is
in
out.
order.
Well, that repairs in 20
But I
years,
think
maybe that's what we...
I think it would be advisable if we can get a meeting scheduled, sit down and just talk to them a little bit.
We will have a better feeling once we sit down.
Regulate the level.
Okay.
Or
That's,
Through all that.
go ahead, Clint.
I don't know that this has been revised, and this was since then,
The roundabout one especially is from 2014, so
and there's been a group that's worked and done extensive discussion with this, and boundary studies and design, talked with the property owners, so there's a lot of headway on here, and actually I think it's a reduced cost estimate.
That's a lot.
So, yeah.
I think this cost estimate took the widest, most area,
Yeah.
and it's been decided that that might not be necessary.
Might be 2 million instead of 3.
And of course, the stickler in that is the gas station. I think a question for NDOT is, can acquisition and
Relocation.
displacement and replacement of the gas station be included as part of the budget? And the last we heard was, yes.
Yes, we went through that when John and I went up and talked to him a while back. And I don't remember the whole conversation, but I know a lot of that was brought up and it was true, so.
You would have to be willing.
Right, and I think you have to be aware that there are some that have apprehensions about this project, and there are some that have voiced outright opposition to it. So I think if you go down the path of pursuing that, I think it's very important that you do what you can to try to inform people, to educate them, to make them understand what's trying to be done and why.
I think it's more questions
Yeah.
than anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, you'll have some in opposition to it, you'll have some in favor of it, but you'll have some like Carl Stevens, who's at the Presbyterian Church, wants to know, how far is it going to be from my church? You know, just wants to see, and there are no plans. You can't see it,
Well, I think
there are no
but
plans.
But there are, I mean, there are some, and I think it's important, for those of you who haven't seen it, I would encourage you, maybe we can get that group in here, and Clint Templeton just give you that presentation, because it's...
And Nate was
Pretty
part of that
impressive.
presentation
Yeah.
to the,
Stands,
we had a
yeah.
business owner meeting and a property owner meeting, and gave a presentation, and all the hard questions were asked, and all the hard questions were answered, and Nate was a part of those, and gave great answers to those hard questions. So if that's something you'd like that committee to report to you, we can...
I would like to.
We can do
Yeah.
that. And we have that PowerPoint that we can share that was presented at both of those meetings. So.
It's the first I've seen, like, the $3 million pre-estimate, you know.
Yeah. Bill or Cam, do you have anything else tonight? If not, I would look for a motion to
I'll make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
90-10.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Adjourn.